In this video, you're going to learn about two new types in JavaScript that are going to allow us to segue into more advanced function techniques. These two types are undefined and null. Both of these represent a sort of absence of a value. So let's go ahead and kick things off by creating a new file where we can mess around with both of these. And we'll start with undefined. We're going to call this file undefined-null.js. And we're going to kick things off with an example we've seen countless times. We make a variable, let name, and we assign it a value. I'll assign this one the string gen, then I print it, console.log, calling the log function, passing in the name variable. What happens when I run this? I'm going to get gen. We know that for a fact. We've seen this example before. Node undefined-null.js, and I get gen. This is not what's interesting. What's more interesting, and why we're having this discussion now, is what happens when we create a variable and don't assign it a value. So let's go ahead and look at this line right here. This line is four pieces. We use the let keyword, we name our variable, we use the equal sign, and we give our variable a value. But these two pieces are actually completely optional, which means that this right here is perfectly valid JavaScript. We are declaring a variable name without assigning it a value. Now, what's going to happen when this program runs? Well, we know that if we weren't declaring name like this, the program would fail. We would get an error trying to access a variable that's never been declared. In this case, though, we have declared it, we just haven't assigned it a value. Well, to figure out what happens, as always, the best way is to run the script. So I'm going to run the script. And what do we get? We get the word undefined printing to the terminal. So undefined is used in JavaScript to represent the absence of a value. It's set implicitly behind the scenes. So at no point in this program have I ever typed the word undefined. By creating a variable and not assigning it a value, JavaScript has assigned it the value of undefined for us. Now, this is pretty useful because we can actually create an if statement, for example, and check if a given variable has ever been assigned a value. Right here, we can set up an if statement. If some condition, some code to run, and then we're also going to add an else clause right on the end. Now, what's the condition? We're going to see if name is undefined. Is the name variable equal to, using the equality operator, and to actually create undefined, we just type out that keyword, undefined. It's a reserved keyword in the language. Right here, what do we have? We now have an if statement where we can do one thing if name was never given a value, and another thing if it was given a value. Up above, console.log. Right here, please provide a name. And down below in the else clause, we can just print the name because we know if this code runs, that name is indeed provided. Let's go ahead and run the script with name set to undefined. If I rerun it, I get my little message, please provide a name. So our equality check did indeed pass. This was true. Now we can assign it a value either on line 1 or down below, name equals gen, for example. This time around, I would expect the second case to run. Over here, if I do go ahead and run things, that is exactly what I get. I get gen printing because the else clause ran. Name was not undefined. Name was actually the string gen. This is just one place where we're going to see undefined implicitly set for us. So let me leave a little comment up above. Undefined for variable. The other place where we're going to see undefined set for us is with our function arguments. So right here, undefined for function arguments, and we're going to explore that with an example as well. Right here, and let's go ahead and make a function like the square function we created previously. We're going to let it equal a function. We'll set up a single argument num, and then we're just going to fake the interior of the function. I'm just going to use console.log, and I'm going to go ahead and actually just print the num value to the screen. Down below, what we're going to do is call square. Now, if we were to call square with 3, we know that 3 would show up. We can run the script to prove it. Right here, 3. But if we weren't going to provide a value, what would happen? Well, what's actually going to happen is that JavaScript is going to set num equal to undefined. It's not going to crash the program. It's not going to say, hey, this argument is required. There's no way to do that. When an argument isn't provided, but it's named in the function definition, undefined is assigned as its value. Now we can save the program in its new state, rerun the script, and this time around you can see we're getting undefined. So that's the second situation. We're going to see it for variables that are never assigned a value. We're going to see it for function arguments that aren't provided. And there's one more notable situation I want to point out. This has to do with function return values. You know how when we return something from a function, we can store its value in a variable using this syntax? Let's do that right now. Right here, let result equal whatever is the return value from square. Then we will console.log result to the screen. So what's the return value from square? Well, we haven't used return anywhere in this function. So what's the return value going to be? Well, based off of where this video has been going so far, you can probably take a pretty good guess that it's going to be undefined. And if that was your guess, you would be correct. Over in the terminal, if we run this program, we see we get undefined twice. The first one is coming from right here, and the second one is coming from right here. So this is the third situation where we're going to see undefined. We're going to see undefined if we try to do something with the return value from a function, but that function doesn't actually return anything. If I were to return something, we would get that value instead. If nothing is returned, that is going to be assigned undefined. So those are the three most common situations that we're going to see undefined implicitly set behind the scenes. There are others, and we'll explore those as we explore more features of the language. Down below, we're going to wrap up this video with just one more example. Actually, let me go ahead and leave a quick note about that last case. Undefined as the function return default value. Perfect. So those are the three cases. We're going to wrap this video up with just one more simple example. Down below, I'm going to create a comment, but I'm not going to type anything in just yet. And what we're going to do is create a variable age and give it a value right away. So I'm going to define it and assign it the value of 27. Then I'm going to print it, console.log age. We're not going to rerun the program. We know what's going to happen. We're going to see 27 print. The question is, what if in our program we want to clear this value? Let's say the user resets the form in the browser and they want to start over. How do we clear a variable's value? Well, we can explicitly assign a variable the value of undefined. And we do that by setting the variable age equal to the value undefined. We type out the undefined keyword. And now if we were to rerun the program, which I will do, we will see undefined print instead of 27. I'm going to clear the terminal output by typing clear. Whoops, a little rendering glitch there. And what we're going to do is rerun the script. So let's use the up arrow key twice to get back to the script. And right here we see the last log is printing undefined, which lines up with this right here. The problem with this code is that I'm not sure if age is undefined because it was never given a value, like in the three situations we explored above, or if it's undefined because it was explicitly cleared by the developer. I lose that context between the actual JavaScript language assigning it a value and us explicitly assigning it a value. And this context can be important. So to preserve that, JavaScript gave us access to a different type that also represents a sort of emptiness, and this is null. Null is meant to be assigned like we're doing here. So we can set age equal to, instead of undefined, we set it equal to null. Now, when we run this program, we're going to see null print instead of undefined. I can rerun the script, and that is exactly what we get. So when we see undefined, we know it's a language default. When we see null, we know something was explicitly cleared by the developer of the program. Up above, we can make a note right here, null as assigned value. Excellent. Now that we know a bit about undefined and null, we're going to be able to move on to the next section and talk about more advanced function features, like passing in multiple arguments and setting default arguments if the argument value isn't provided. That is all coming up in the next one, along with more challenges and programming projects. I'm very excited to get to it. let's jump right in.